show or if they're going to be late, and then we'll get started. Okay, I have us at 11:03, so I'm going to go ahead and let us get rolling, and we'll let any latecomers in as they arrive. And so we'll get going. Welcome to our latest webinar series. This one's about using UGC and stories to drive tourism recovery. We're going to be presented to by CrowdRiff today. We have some of their team here. They're going to kind of run through some of what our partner program is, what we have available, and then why user-generated content is important, how to use it for recovery, and just kind of dig into what it means and how it can impact the recovery of tourism, because we do know that user-generated does really well in the recovery process. For everybody that is maybe watching this recorded, this is a part of our webinar series that we've been doing since COVID and in the fall of 2020 to kind of help all of our partners and our partners to plan for recovery and position themselves to be ready to kind of get out there as quick as possible as we can when the time was right. So we've been sharing a lot of best practices and different tools that you can use to be ready for recovery. I encourage everybody to go to our industry portal, louisianatravel.com/industry, to access all of our previous webinars, which we've recorded, and we'll be recording this one as well. And to look at our upcoming schedule as well. We have photography best practices that we'll be doing next week. And then for May, we'll be going to a once a month plan for all of our webinars. So keep a lookout for those new topics. We are going to be covering more sports tourism. I'm working on lining up some working with media topics. So check that out and revisit, and we'll keep kind of trucking along and working towards getting everything back on track to get travel back to Louisiana. In the meantime, then, I'd like to pass it to Julia with CrowdRiff, who is going to take over and walk us through using UGC and how it can impact recovery.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. And yeah, happy to be here virtually to chat with all of you today. So yeah, as mentioned, we're talking about using user-generated content and stories to drive tourism recovery. So a bit of housekeeping. We are on for 30 minutes, I believe, but we do have the hour blocked if we want to just move into a Q&A and have a kind of free-flowing question period afterwards. The session is being recorded, so if you have colleagues who couldn't make it, or if you have to drop off, it'll be available for your viewing afterwards. And yeah, as I mentioned, we will have a Q&A at the end, but please do submit your questions throughout and I'll address them as best I can. It's just you can submit in, I don't think there is a Q&A function here, but just use the chat and yeah, I'll get to those questions as they pop up. So as mentioned, I'm Julia, leading our content marketing initiatives at CrowdRiff. So if you've been on our webinars or at our events, you may have seen me around the community, but if not, hi, nice to meet you. If you have any questions about this session, you can reach me. My email is on the screen there. Just happy to answer any questions about tourism recovery, UGC in general. So feel free to reach out. And for those of you who are newer to our community and don't know who CrowdRiff is, we're the visual marketing software that innovative DMOs rely on through the COVID-19 recovery and beyond. Over 800 travel brands drive results with CrowdRiff by sourcing, acquiring rights to, and leveraging visuals. So a bit of an agenda for today. We're going to talk about what is UGC, just a quick refresher on what is this content format. I think there's a few misconceptions out there, so we'll address that. We'll dive into how to use UGC for disaster relief, other ways to use UGC, getting rights to user-generated content, and then talk about stories and move into a live Q&A. So I know there's not too many of us on the call, but I'd love to, and I think the chat has a few responses in it, but I'd love to just know who is joining us on the session today. What is your role? What is the DMO or CVB you're working for? Yeah, would just love if folks could share that. And as you're typing out your answers, I'll move into our first portion here. So whether it's COVID-19 or other disasters like hurricanes, if you work in the tourism industry, you know that when disaster happens, even if your destination has been doing really well, it can suddenly become the center of media attention. Even if your ticket sales, your bookings, and your heads and beds have been on the rise, negative events and publicity can often upend tourism in an area, even after the destination itself has recovered. So when Hurricane Irma hit the East Coast in 2017, the damage received a ton of media attention. However, there wasn't a lot of attention on the beautiful beaches that remained or the businesses that bounced back and were welcoming people again. So because of this one-sided coverage, visitors can have trouble shaking off the negative media attention that the media has constructed. So that's exactly what's happening with COVID right now. So as part of our job as destination marketers, we have to rebuild that trust among tourists, locals, and the media. So this past year, we've seen DMOs use local UGC to build trust and confidence among locals and visitors, show what's open, and reinforce health and safety messages. But before we get into that, it's helpful to backpedal onto what user-generated content actually is. So UGC is content that is voluntarily created and shared by fans or consumers of a brand who are not associated with that brand. So when you see a photo of your friend posting an amazing smoothie or salad or fried chicken, if you're into that and you want that too, that's an example of UGC at work. So UGC could be text, pictures, multimedia. It can be reviews, blog posts, video content. And this is different than content that's created by influencers because you're actually paying someone to create content on behalf of your brand, whereas UGC is often free content that is created by people organically about your destination. So why is user-generated content important? Unlike media footage, the photos and videos locals are sharing really reflect what's happening on the ground. And it's these visuals that people are sharing that are powerful sources of information for what's really going on in a destination. So first off, they're trustworthy. Since these stories are coming from everyday people, whether it's locals or travelers or your local businesses, people can trust them as unbiased views of what life looks like in a given destination. They're also really up to date. So social media images today can show the most current and accurate window into your destination, and they're much more relevant than what the media might have presented maybe a month ago. And they're also really abundant. People are sharing thousands of images on social media every day. So especially when you're in recovery mode, you want to deliver frequent communications of new information, whether on your website or your social media channels. So that's a big reason why UGC is so valuable in these situations, because every day new photos and videos are being shared of what it's really like at your destination. So let's take a look at some of the ways you can use UGC as a powerful communication tool in your marketing, especially right now. So it's one thing to say that your trails are open for socially distant hikers. It's another to show people doing just that. So UGC allows you to tap into to the content that people are posting on social media every day about the experiences that they're having. As you can see, this content is unfiltered, and it's a great picture of what's going on in the ground in your neighborhood or your destination. And by showing this real-time social proof of what's happening, you're actually reinforcing your trustworthiness as a DMO or CVB sharing that information. So you can see this example from Louisiana North Shore. This is on their business operations page, and they have been showing fresh UGC that shows visitors what's happening at their local businesses. And they even have date stamps here to show people when the page was last updated. So to make sure your information is up to date, ask yourself, when was the last time I updated imagery on my homepage or other high traffic pages? Does the imagery showcase what's open while also inspiring people to visit? And does the imagery promote health and safety guidelines? So here you can see everyone in the photos are wearing masks, and that goes a long way to just clearly show people what you're doing to keep people safe, and also set expectations about what's required of them when they come to your neighborhoods and your businesses. So another way you can use UGC on that note is to support your partners. So especially as more people are traveling, I think US hotel occupancy rates reached like 60% last week. So especially as more people are starting to travel again, you want to let them know how they can support local businesses and your partners. So this is a page from Vancouver North Shore, and they put together this page. They're calling it a travel recovery guide that features 1, 2, and 3 day itineraries, socially distant activities, which you can see on the screen, and also attractions that are open. So they use CrowdRiff to source the UGC in the guide, share content via our galleries function, and drive traffic to partners using calls to action on the visuals. They also had Google locations, so residents and travelers can see the most up-to-date information for each business listed. Their marketing team told us the travel guide has become the first stop for any visitor looking to travel to the North Shore, with suggestions of socially distant activities and outdoor things to do, as well as guidelines on how to be a responsible traveler during these times. So UGC can help in this instance by showing local social proof of the latest info of your local businesses, who's open, how they're meeting the current guidelines, promote special offers and updates, drive traffic to their web pages, and lastly, stay top of mind and build trust with visitors as your economy reopens. And another way you can leverage UGC is by sharing it with people in the media, influencers, journalists, and bloggers. So as we know, sharing high resolution visual content plays a really critical role in your recovery efforts, as it can help spark action with visitors, generate positive media sentiment, and ultimately helps you take control of your destination's narrative. So this is an example of Visit Indiana's Media Hub, and this was part of their 20 in 20 campaign. So when they planned the campaign, they didn't expect a global pandemic to halt worldwide travel. But the campaign, they decided to stick with it. And the idea behind it was 20 lists of 20 must-see things and things to do around Indiana. So they promoted over 400 attractions across 92 counties. And despite COVID, they still stuck with their goals of the campaign, which was to drive media interest, garner coverage throughout the year, encourage different types of travel, and encourage traveler sentiment. So they used CrowdRiff more than ever to pivot and drive record-breaking engagement, really, as they modified the campaign with a more local focused approach. So instead of maybe a list on popular music venues, it was socially distant hikes. So they adjusted the campaign with pandemic messaging. So they did end up pausing it for 2 months, but as at the end of the year, they saw some really fantastic results. So 13 million media impressions, 761% increase in media exposure compared to the same period of last year, and over 150 million people reached from news coverage. So a lot of smaller outlets picked up the stories and were promoting these lists throughout the year within the state of Indiana. For every list of 20, they created a CrowdRiff gallery with calls to actions. And those CTAs enabled people to, again, go to these businesses' sites, check out their offerings, maybe do online ordering. And Visit Indiana also created Media Hub folders, which you can see here as toolkits that included images for all of the destinations as well as logos for the campaign. So that made it easier for their partners to promote the campaign because they could quickly access and download all of this content. So now that you know some of the benefits and primary applications for UGC, let's take a look at how we can get the rights to this content. So a lot of time people will ask us, do you need the rights to use user-generated content in your marketing? And the short answer is yes, you do. We would recommend you always get explicit permission from the original user before using UGC in any channel. I see this at the end of the day as something that's going to benefit you in so many different ways. First off, it saves you a lot of hours and dollars in the long run because you can, once you have the rights to that content, you can repurpose it across your website, your social channels. We've seen people print UGC and use them in travel guides. They can display them in photo walls in their visitor center. There's just countless ways that you can use this content once you have the explicit rights for it. And it also opens the door to build relationships with creators who may be willing to share additional imagery with you or provide you with a high resolution version of the photo. So at CrowdRiff, we also use UGC in our marketing efforts. And this is a screenshotted conversation of a creator that he gave us permission to reshare this and reached out, wanted to use one of his photos. And he actually said, let me know if you're looking for anything in specific. I will go out and like capture that content for you. If it's a cityscape, if it's mountains, if it's food, he just saw the value in having his work shared with our followers and was trying to build his own portfolio. So I think what's really nice is we hear people fostering relationships with creators in their community and often have established ambassador programs, whether formal or informal, so paid or unpaid. And it's just a really nice way to get a consistent flow of beautiful content. So a few tips when you're asking for rights to your content. You want to leave a nice comment that definitely shows appreciation for the work someone's put out there. Tell them how you want to use their photo. If it's multiple use cases, then highlight that. If it's for a specific campaign or channel, mention that, and give them a way to say yes. So at CrowdRiff, if you include a hashtag, the platform will automatically take a photo of that and save that along with the time and date. But you don't necessarily need CrowdRiff to do this. You can take a photo manually yourself. It's a little bit more work, but it certainly qualifies as well. And then, yeah, you want to keep accurate records of all of this just to ensure that you have the proper permissions to use the content. So this is an example of that at work. So they're complimenting the photographer, they're saying where they're going to use it, and they're providing a hashtag, and the user said, yes, you can use this photo of this dog watching this dolphin. So we actually put together a bit of a spreadsheet that you're welcome to use for rights requests. I'm just going to drop in the chat. It has 30 or so like nicely phrased rights requests you can use on your social channels. Just adjust the messaging however you see fit. And you can start requesting rights to beautiful photos. Another benefit, though, of rights approved content is that you can use it to power your travel stories. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Elaine to discuss travel stories a little bit.
Cool. Thanks, Julia. So hi, everyone. My name is Elaine. I'm the Travel Story Solutions Consultant. So I work with LOT's partners like Erica and Sarah, who are here today, that have joined the LOT Travel Stories program, which you can actually join at no cost if you are not a member. My role is basically to ensure that you're getting the most out of the platform, and that CrowdRiff is receiving your feedback. So that's kind of my role at CrowdRiff. So Julia, if you could go to the next slide. So let's talk about travel stories. So today I'd like to speak to you, obviously, about travel stories. I don't want to overcomplicate things. So I just want to be very transparent and really say that at their core, what travel stories are Google's version of Instagram stories, Facebook stories, fleets, etc. So we'll kind of dive into why these new Google stories are cutting edge, how you can incorporate them into your website, while at the same time having your stories kind of being amplified by LOT and crawled and indexed by Google. So let's take a step back though and ask ourselves kind of about the format itself. So why would you use stories in general? So at CrowdRiff, we saw a really massive boom in story consumption. We saw 35x growth since 2017. So this type of story consumption hasn't ever been seen before. And we really wanted to kind of meet consumers where they were. We also knew that potential travelers, whether they're local or regional or international, they're really seeking on the ground authentic experiences and voices, which is why UGC is so powerful. So really the point is that when you visit a destination, you don't really want to feel like a tourist. You want to see these hidden gems. You want to see those unique quirks. You want to feel like you've really discovered something that other travelers haven't. So again, why stories? First of all, stories are compelling, right? Stories combine all of these things that Julia has been talking about, still imagery, video, sound, into a mobile-friendly, familiar format. Travelers are watching stories. There's a reason why every evening I sit on my couch and I watch the person I went to high school with eating cake. Consumers are really engaging with this format because it's snack sized and it's easy to consume. Second of all, kind of from your perspective, it's insightful. So there are a lot of different parts of stories, which again, Julia just covered and I just mentioned. That gives you, the DMO, a lot of information on consumer behavior. So let's say most people are dropping off on the second panel. Why? Or they're swiping up on this specific part of the story. Why? You're basically able to understand that that visitors are consuming something, and being able to see kind of what's resonating and what's not is really great. Also, these stories are discoverable. So I just mentioned this a couple of minutes ago. With the travel stories format, each story is basically a web page. So it's crawled and indexed by search engines. A story basically acts as a page in it of itself. This means that Google is actually crawling and indexing every single story. And unlike Instagram, where stories disappear and no one can find it unless they're on Instagram, these stories can appear as blue links. This means that you are creating evergreen content that can be discoverable. So if your stories are, let's say, sitting on a website with a high domain, for example, LOT, and you're applying kind of best practices and SEO principles or practices, this means you're able to potentially drive organic traffic to your site. So travel stories are basically giving you an additional avenue to surface in organic search results, which I know as marketers is a really big value add. And the last point I kind of want to make is obviously these stories are multi-purpose. So they have kind of the same general look and feel. So you can create a story once, export it, and use those files to create a story on Instagram, on Facebook, on fleets. So there is an element of time and resource saving here as well. So we actually have Erica here. So I wanted to shout out Visit Baton Rouge and show you what these stories actually look like. So here's an example again of Visit Baton Rouge, who have a gallery of stories sitting on their homepage currently. So you can see that you have this gorgeous hero banner, which is really selling kind of the vibe and the feeling of coming to Baton Rouge. And then as you scroll down, you see this beautiful clean gallery that a consumer can sift through and choose to interact with. So these are, again, really local on the ground stories that are used with UGC content. And now if I click on into one of these stories, Again, you can see kind of how specific and local these stories can get. So just like with Instagram stories, you can have a swipe up function, meaning you can tag local businesses. You can actually route potential travelers directly to a booking page or any partner merchants or hotels to get heads and beds. And the best part is that you don't actually need 10,000 followers. So travelers are getting, really contextual information from these stories. And again, you can see a list of coffee shops in Baton Rouge here. So we talked about kind of why you would use travel stories on your site, but now I want to talk about why you would want to use them in a network, which is really what the program offers. So all of these things that we just spoke about, they all remain true, but because of this network, your stories can actually be surfaced in new related places. So what I'm actually talking about specifically is that travel stories created by, for example, Baton Rouge or North Shore are currently sitting on their sites, but they're also sitting on multiple places on LOT's sites. So when you publish a story, you don't need to send them to Jennifer or to LOT. They're just added to the homepage. They just kind of appear. So again, it's create once, publish everywhere. So what this means to a potential traveler or visitor is that, let's say they might be planning a trip to Louisiana, they're considering possibly going to New Orleans. Maybe they haven't considered coming to your destination, but they can discover your destination. Or, a traveler who is, has been searching or researching a destination near you could stumble upon your stories on LOT sites. So really, this kind of network effect is exposing travelers to other areas, and a traveler's journey doesn't really stop at specific, let's say, borders of parishes. So really, Story Network is what I like to say is a rising tide lifting all boats. So just to kind of reiterate, you are able to make use of these stories that are being crawled and indexed by Google. You have them sit in perpetuity on your site, while at the same time having these stories being amplified by LOT. Really, LOT can route potential travelers not only to your site, but to your partners and to your merchants. So if any of this sounds compelling to you, we would absolutely love to have you be a part of the program. It's free for you to join. We would set up an account for you and you'd have an onboarding session with me, and I'd walk you kind of through every step of the way. So if you're interested, just let Jennifer know. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Right at 12:30 or 11:30, right on the dot.
Thanks to my rapid speaking, I talk maybe 1,000 words a minute.
I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any questions? We're not a terribly huge group, so I feel like if anybody wants to pop off a mute and ask, they can feel free to do that. In addition to if you'd rather throw it in chat, you can do that too. I'm going to make a note that I am so excited to see Baton Rouge with a gallery up. That is one of our big goals for a lot of our partners that are on the Story Network, is to be able to get to that point of having built enough stories to get galleries up. So I'm very excited. And I already went and looked at dog-friendly places that I can maybe take my pups. So it's great to see that that's happening and that's out there. But any questions about rights management or, why to look at using this in recovery, feel free to throw out. Or Elaine and Julia did an excellent job of explaining this and you don't have any, which they typically do. So if there aren't any questions, we can wrap it up and let everybody get lunch if that's where we are. It sounds like it might be.
All right, we'll take that as a testament to our amazing presentation skills.
And thanks everybody for coming. Again, if you are interested in any of the partner network stuff about CrowdRiff, just reach out and we'll get you set up. Thanks everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Take care.